In marketplaces, you have this fancy word called liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
And liquidity measures on the supply side that you have enough workers to go around to fill all the shifts on the demand side.
Man, welcome to the intro. No need for introductions. All about the world and the world what we discussing. Where every single thought that we had came from something. So it's funny that we made it when we started here with nothing. Gotta open up your mind just to find out why. When you lost inside the dark, just gotta turn on the light. And no matter what you do, you never run from a fight. Because we fighting to be better and that's why we strive.
All right, so I'm here with Carson Jones. You are foremost a husband. You are the co-founder of Reflex. And no offense to your wife, but I think your best feat is that you got me into Notion. So, which you have changed my life. I love Notion so much. But really quickly, do you want to introduce yourself and we'll kind of go from there?
Yeah, sure. First of all, Cory, great to see you, man. Thanks for having me on here.
It's a pleasure, man.
Cory and I were joking. This is my first time being on a podcast, so starting off in style. I love it.
There we go.
My name's Carson. I'm the co-founder of Reflex. I started the company with my co-founder Mike Meyers back in 2021. Reflex is a way to work in retail that surpasses any other way, and so our mission is to build the best way to work in that industry. We do that by connecting retailers to experienced associates on demand.
Okay.
And our whole MO is about building a best worker and experience for everyone. And so we're really passionate about unlocking flexibility, unlocking the ability for people to work when they want to work, where they want to work, in one of the largest industries in America and all the world. Got my start as an entrepreneur way back in the day after doing my undergrad here in Austin, Texas. I've been obsessed with building ever since. And so I'm really passionate about building experiences that move people forward, man.
There we go. And so who is the target market? Is it both the retail store looking for employees, like especially like during a busy season, and the consumer, or who is it?
Absolutely. I think with a marketplace, it's they're a lot of fun to build. You have to think about two-sided markets, and you have to think about different audience classes for what you go create. Our target customer is what we call the demand side, and that's our retailers. And so right now we're partnering with mostly apparel and specialty brands.
Okay.
I'd kind of say it in the middle to upper class realm of clothing and brands you'd recognize. We sell mostly to the store manager and district managers and also people at corporate. Anyone that controls what their labor spend looks like and how they think about who's going to be staffing our store today and how are we going to get the right coverage that we need. At the same time, we put a lot of our attention, probably most of our attention, particularly to those working on our platform. And our workers come from all different classes. We have folks from, that are university students here in town or in other markets that we're in, which I'd love to talk about later.
Yeah.
As well as, we have working moms or new mothers who are trying to get back into the workforce. We have people who are later in their career. Sorry.
That's where you're good to go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean I was trying to do this like you're good. I was getting my notes out so I don't forget a question. My bad.
Yeah, no, all good. We have people that are later in their career that are looking for extra cash, or maybe they're looking for something else to do. So finding them and targeting them has just been really a awesome learning experience, like diving into, who works in retail, who wants to work in retail, and who can we provide extra cash to. So
very cool, man. And do you and James Morin have the exact same target audience?
I'd say on the retailer side, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you guys ever go, hey, you should hook up with Target, do you do that or no?
Yeah, James is a dear friend. I think he's already said that his proudest moment will be when we can actually be serving the same customer at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're getting close. I think we're talking
cool.
to a few of the same brands. But yes, we're targeting the same kind of sell. So
cool.
Selling into C-suites at national retail brands that you'd recognize.
Very cool. So let's say that you land like a Target or something like that. You land a Target and basically, are they using you like Monday through Friday, or is it like we only need you on the weekends, or like what's a typical use case for a Target?
Yeah, totally. So I think that's a beautiful part about our platform is this idea of unlocking flexibility on both sides means that our use cases for the retailer particularly span whatever they might need. Most brands that we work with bring in our people pretty consistently, and we've noticed a trend where we'll kind of become the part-time component of their stores. In your example, though, Monday through Friday or Saturday, Sunday, it depends on that store manager and their needs. So if Target, for instance, is getting a huge shipment in the day before, and they need some extra bodies to come help move things off trucks and organize the store floor, they can hire Reflex to do that. At the same time, when F1 comes through and they're expecting an uptick and a whole bunch of folks coming through the store, or particularly in Target's case, like if new store or school year starting and they know that a whole bunch of people are going to come in to buy the things that they need, they can lean on Reflex to bring in extra associates to help in any front that they have.
And I have so many questions, which is why I have I need to get a smaller one of these. How often are these employees that you guys work or you guys employ to these stores, did they turn into an actual employee at that store?
Yeah, so it happens, right? Do
you guys love that, or are you kind of like, ugh?
Obviously, in marketplaces, you have this fancy word called liquidity. And liquidity measures on the supply side that you have enough workers to go around to fill all the shifts on the demand side. And if that's out of balance in any market that we serve, then one party's going to be unhappy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not enough work for the workers, which we call our reflexers. And if they can't get the work they need, then they'll look at other gig economy platforms for things that they might want to do.
Exactly.
At the same time, on the retailer front, if we can't fill the shifts that they have needs for, then how can the retailer customer trust us?
Exactly.
So we're always trying to keep those in balance.
It's tough.
Talking about what we call poaching or someone actually getting hired by one of our customers, we look at it with goodwill, right? If a worker joins us because they're really gung-ho about getting paid the next day, choosing their own schedule, mixing it up and being able to work in different kind of stores, but then they decide that they want something more defined or they really love that brand, we feel good about the fact that we were able to introduce them to that retailer.
That could be a cool, but I don't know what the phrase is, but like a cool stat on your website. Like we've converted 10% of our employees get a full-time job out of this. You know what I mean? Yeah. One
of the values for the retail side, and I think in any kind of business as an entrepreneur, you can appreciate this. Hiring is just hard. Finding folks, putting them through your process, training, vetting them, onboarding them onto your the way that you do things, making them effective on day one, making them continue to stay effective day 90, keeping them around, keeping them happy. You spend a lot of resources making that happen.
Yeah.
One of the advantages we have is we take away all of that cost associated with that for the retailer. So when a retailer chooses to hire somebody from our platform, we want to make sure that that it is a good fit for them, and then that's the right path forward. We've been experimenting, and I will say experimenting because we're not quite sure the right way that we're going to do this, but charging a fee for that, just like a recruiting agency would. Almost making attaching some kind of value to that process and taking care of what we did for that retailer. We're playing with playing is probably not the right word, but we've been iterating off of what's the right amount, what makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't see ourselves as a hiring agency. That's not what we're for. We're here to help you augment your labor models, your staffing needs, or whatever that might be. We're not here that you can hire folks from our platform, but we know that it happens. And like I said, we believe firmly in pushing goodwill out because we know that it will come back to us.
And speaking of training, so how does that process work for you guys? Because obviously you can't just go into a Target and be like, hey, this guy's ready to work. And he's just he's like, yeah, I'm ready to work. And he just fucking goes on the floor. So what?
Sure. Yeah, a couple of points on that. And when Mike and I started the company, that was the biggest pushback that we got from folks that we interviewed is retailers have a general idea that their brand is special, and I think that's true.
Yeah.
If you think about what retail is, it's an idea around you're wearing Adidas because you associate yourself with that kind of style. And so the people that are on the floor helping sell product, helping place, design the storefront, helping actually make sure the floor is organized, helping folks in the fitting room, that's a really integral part to what the company sells, not just their product, but that way of life. And so this idea that retailers have that, our product is so much different than anyone else's, we pushed on that, and we tried to validate how much of this really matters.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really interesting about our platform, though, is we're not hiring anyone off the street. We're not hiring a warehouse worker to come into your store and sell your products to their customers. What we're really doing is we're finding the person that works 2 doors down at a store that's very similar, and giving them the flexibility to switch it up, to work at that store down the street.
Cool.
The last thing I'll mention on this is, we do quite a bit in our vetting and preparation process to make sure that like the person heading into the door for that day has the right kind of information, right? Yeah. Here's the promotions that are happening. Here's the dress code and the style that they need to know. Here's the guidelines on like particular products that they might be running sales for, or here's how things are made. And we make sure that like, every Reflexer that steps in is going to provide an incredible experience. So,
and how does that work for, like, is there some sort of, if they don't happen to have experience, sorry, I'll run that back. Do they all have experience in retail typically?
Yeah. So I'd say about 98% of all of our workers have had some form or fashion in retail. You've mentioned Target a few times, but we're particularly looking, based on the brands we find, is aligning folks that have experience in a similar space.
Gotcha.
So when we think about a particular apparel brand, we're finding folks that have worked in something similar to them. And a lot of what our software does is it helps align the people that have had similar experiences for the opportunities that become available to them.
Okay. And is the company themselves choosing these employees, or are you guys like, these 3 are going to work there today? Are they like, no, I want these 3? Kind of like, how does that work?
Yeah, good question. Reflex is a platform. And so when a retailer posts that they have a need, we're pushing it out and optimizing for the people in our network that would be a good fit for that.
Gotcha.
But because we're so geared towards the worker's experience, workers have the choice. Because we're trying to unlock flexibility for them and the freedom for them to choose when they're going to work and where they're going to work, we leave it up to them on how they're going to go, or whether or not they pick up that shift.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that idea and that transaction, really comes down to, can we ensure that we get the shift in front of the right reflexers? Can we, and make sure that the times work for them? Can we make sure that it's something that they want to achieve? And now that like we've created such a large enough network, that we've been able to fill shifts like in 25 minutes.
Super cool, dude. And then what are the typical like hours and jobs people are doing? Is it like you're going to get 10 hours a week typically, like staffing or stocking shelves, or like what's the typical job like?
Yeah, it varies depending on customer, right?
Okay.
So we have some higher end brands on our platform, and in that cases, you're dealing with clientele where that as a reflexer, you might spend 3 hours walking through a sheet list of everything that person might need to order, and you're racking up a tab of well into the thousands of dollars that you're helping to actually make the transaction for.
Very cool.
At the same time, one of the biggest use cases that we see across the platform is omni fulfillment help. So during the pandemic and even before, there was a trend towards doing fulfillment in store. And so when you actually order that shirt from Faraday.com, I'm sure you've seen the Instagram ads, you're not actually pushing that order out into the East Coast where their headquarters is, them fulfilling that in their warehouse and shipping it to you. At that moment, it's actually being sent to the store that's closest to you. That will guarantee better delivery times. They'll guarantee, that in case you need to return it, you can. And so what we have is a bunch of reflexers who will actually go into the store and help with that omni fulfillment on site.
Cool. Very cool. What have you guys changed within these companies? Like, what is the old process? Like, before Reflex, what was a company doing to get a part-time employee?
Sure. Yeah, hiring's tough, and we talked a little bit about that, right? There's so many different techniques to finding workers. I think, what we've learned mostly about retail is that it's a huge community full of folks that, want to stick together. And so a lot, like as a store manager, before Reflex, I'd be looking at LinkedIn, I'd be putting out on Facebook groups, I'd be trying to find ways of identifying folks, and then, I'd have to schedule and coordinate actually getting them coordinated for an interview. I'd have to then, put them through our corporate system and make sure that we have all their information on file. I'll have to run a background check and bring them in for in-person interviews. And then when I decide to hire them, I'm now responsible for onboarding, scheduling them into my process, and so on.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say with Reflex, like, we've kind of taken that away, and we've been able to, if you need someone, you can click a button and get help that day.
Okay.
One thing that we've seen though is, after a shift is over, and we call it a flex, both parties.
I like that. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it works out, right?
Nice.
both parties get a chance to review the other side. And we believe
cool.
that's incredibly important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Reflexer, did you have a good experience in that store? And so we can collect information with the different store managers that are working, what kinds of folks that they vibe with, if you will, who's effective like in their location. And at the same time, the retailer can leave feedback for that particular worker. And so because of that, we've been able to, start to align folks with brands. And so we created almost a rostering system where you kind of have a subset of our network that you've already built a relationship with. And so we'll optimize or prioritize sending those folks back to you when it matters.
Very cool. And dude, I wanted to touch on it really quick. I forgot to mention how we met.
Yeah, let's talk about it. It's a great story.
So I went back to Washington for a wedding in 2020, and then I went to my sister's 40th in Vegas, and then I'm coming back to OKC, and I have a layover in Denver. And then Farhaj, my roommate, is like, dude, there's this gathering at what was starts with the F.
Fraser, Colorado.
Fraser, Colorado. There's this gather, all these founders and investors are meeting up, and you end up being. I end up just ditching my secondary flight and just going to sitting in a little car for an hour with random people and going to Fraser. And I meet you and Jake O'Shea and all these random people that I'm good friends with to this day.
It's so funny how the world brings you together like that.
Dude,
I don't know if you remember, I was one of the random people in the car with you. So
oh, you were? Oh, nice. Okay.
We went from being Twitter mutuals and probably exchanging a few messages to you being right up next to me as we're navigating the heavy fog on the pathway into Fraser, Colorado. So we went from not knowing each other at all to sharing a car ride for over 3 hours. Through winding turns.
Bro, it was we got snowed in and we couldn't.
Oh man!
And then we won
happiest moment of my life. We played squares at that local bar in town. Okay, so here we were. Okay. We had gone to brunch at this local bar in Fraser, Colorado. Those of you who don't know, is a small town outside of Winter Park, which we clearly were distinguishing as a house collective that we were in Fraser, not in Winter Park,
100%.
Which is very important.
Don't forget that.
So we walked into Fraser, or this local bar in town, and we had this really nice brunch. And on the way out, I think the Broncos were playing the Chiefs. Pretty classic rivalry. Yeah. And we decided, hey, why don't we all pitch in some money and we'll partake in the squares that was happening that day. So Squares is a betting game where, if you don't know, it's really fun, but it comes down to chance at the score at the end of the game, as well as scores through the different quarters. Anyway, so we pretty much put a whole heap of cash down on the table and pieced out of there.
Yeah.
And then it just started dumping snow.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it was we were huddled back in our Airbnb, and we're like, how are we gonna get back to this bar? How are we even gonna know that we won?
Yeah.
What's gonna happen? Because we don't know what square we were on, and we didn't know if we were going to take the whole lot. So anyway, a couple of us, I don't know if you were in the car, we decided, hey, we'll just go back to the bar, we'll trudge through snow, and we'll see if we can make it in there and just double check. And so I decided, hey, I'm the Coloradian here. I'll walk in and I'll see if what happened. And all of a sudden I was like, hey, I just wanted to check on the score, from the Broncos game earlier today. And they were like, okay, great. And they came back and she's like, you guys won. Yeah. And immediately everyone in the bar was like, woo! But I was like, oh no, all my friends are back in the cabin. Let's get all the money together and we'll go out.
Something like that, right?
It was something insane. Yeah. I think it was we all profited pretty well from that.
So we put $90 in. We won $1,000.
It was pretty good.
Well, we felt bad too because we won the money, and one of our buddies the night before, had just puked everywhere in the bar.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, walking in that bar was not easy, but
oh man, dude.
It definitely left a little happier than I did walking into it.
Dude, good times, man. So I'll get back to Reflex in a sec, but I want to talk about your past startup that when I first met you were all about, which is a chili pepper.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so absolutely.
Your baby.
So before starting Reflex, I was actually working at a startup called Arcade, which I think is relevant and worth mentioning. Arcade's really where I was introduced to retail and this idea of building technology to improve the likes of workers. At Arcade, we were all about employee engagement and how can we use gamification to make the frontline workers' job a little bit more exciting. And so that's where I learned that, at the end of the day, you can present these different sales goals in so many different ways. But when my co-founder came to me with the idea of Reflex, I realized that flipping it on its head and instead making it more about where you work and when you work, it's exciting. that's my tie-in to the whole thing and why I tick. But while I was at Arcade, I was hacking around with a few different ideas just for fun. I was trying to stretch my skill set a little bit, dive into dev and dive into code a lot more. And I stumbled across an idea using Notion that I just felt like had to exist in the world. I saw this trend at the time that folks were using Notion as website pages. And so rather than spinning up, a Wix site or a Webflow site, folks are literally just writing Notion documents and then putting them on a public URL for folks to go hit. And that was their website.
Yeah.
But you think about it, like Notion wasn't built to be a website tool. And so one of the biggest missing components on that was forms. I was building landing pages, just testing out different ideas, and I was like, I need a way to capture people's information. At the same time, this is going to get a little too technical, a little too nerdy, but at the same time, I was playing with this concept of using like prop-driven styles in React and building out like my own styled system where I could dynamically feed in what something looks like based on some data that I collect.
Gotcha.
And so naturally, I was going to go build a form builder.
Nice.
You mentioned in the intro, though, Notion has been something I've been incredibly passionate about. So during that time, I was a part of the Notion ambassador community, and I was going to these meetups pre-COVID where we were just preaching the good word about this tool that's going to take over the world. And through that in New York, I actually met a gentleman by the name of Adrian, and Adrian had figured out a way to get data out of Notion. And so he had like not hacked, that's probably not the best word, but he had figured out a way to like actually sniff out all the data that was coming through the wire in Notion and be able to export that out for some reasons he was thinking about. I went up to Adrian and I had like been experimenting with this idea of embedding a form onto a Notion page. And I was like, Adrian, do you think that there's a way to get data into Notion? And he was like, that's a really good question. A couple weeks later, we had a prototype together and all of a sudden Chili Pepper was born. And what happened there was incredibly exciting. Chili Pepper still exists today. It's used by over tens of thousands of users.
What?
It's still in progress. Yeah. Adrian and I, we're continuing to work on it, but sparingly because we've taken our new full-time adventures. But at the time, we were really focused on, how do we help unlock Notion for more people and forms was just another way of extending an already great solution for folks. And, it was a really fun ride. Really quick story because I think this is a fun one. When we started Chili Pepper, we shared it amongst the ambassador community, and just as a way of like helping people that were already incredibly passionate about it use Notion in a new way. And we weren't really ready for any kind of hype or any kind of publicity because it was just a side project. We were working on it in our free time, nights and weekends, just exploring our own ideas. And then all of a sudden we got picked up on Product Hunt.
Right.
I get a call.
Someone else made one for you? Or what?
Yeah, someone hunted us out of the blue. It was so weird. It was like some guy with a Guy Fawkes mask. He didn't even have a real name. We're like, okay. And we woke up. I woke up on Saturday morning to a call from Adrian. He's like, hey, I think you should know that we just got hunted on Product Hunt. And I was like, okay, what do we do next? Nice. For the next hour, we like deliberated. We thought about like calling Product Hunt or like contacting them and being like, hey, can you please take this down? We have no idea who this person is. And then we just looked at each other and we're like, you know what? Like so much of building things is getting it out in front of people, and we just leaned into it. Yeah. And so we just stomped on the gas pedal. We hyped it up on Twitter. We got you and a whole bunch of friends really just to like, push it out there. And before you knew it, like the end of the day, we got the third best product. And
so it was cool.
It was such a ride.
That's so crazy, man. Like even today with Factful Sports, we're intentionally trying to get top, and we're like top 15 or whatever.
Oh, it's so hard.
You guys like wake up like, oh, 1 second.
It's so hard.
Oh, it is. I got long story, but I got number one time. But like,
nice.
Yeah, dude, I had to text so many people.
Right.
I think it was a slow week too, honestly. But like, dude, it's tough, man.
I think what was really fun about the Chili Pepper Product Hunt experience was, we did our best, but we didn't really push it too hard. We knew that what we were sitting on was an idea that people wanted, and so we kind of just let it run its course. But here's the irony part. So under the hood, you would embed a Chili Pepper form onto a Notion page, and that used a third-party service called Embedly. That's how Notion actually uses or allows you to put Google Maps or anything else that's embedded into the page. Embedly actually went down that day.
Oh. Nice.
And so we don't know if it's because of us. Probably not. But the irony was a whole bunch of people signed up and voted for us just on the idea of what Chili Pepper was, but they couldn't use it.
Damn, that's so annoying.
So it was pretty good. It was pretty good learning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it happened to me too when my Product Hunt, my app launched and it basically was not very functional. And so I was like, thank God this didn't actually work out. We didn't get a lot of users because we ended up like
going again.
Long story, but
Right.
our number one didn't show up, and you couldn't even search for my company's name. It just,
Right.
You couldn't search for We Strive. It just like, and I was
Just didn't work.
emailing Product Hunt for days,
Yeah.
and I'm like, guys, like this is clearly a bug, and then finally
Right.
they're like, oh yeah, that was actually a big bug.
Oh,
But
no.
I'm glad it didn't work because like, dude,
Everything was in
our
shambles.
app like just
Right.
crashed on
Right.
everybody. So I was like, thank God, dude.
Someone says it though. It's like, if you're not embarrassed by like what's out there, if it like doesn't work very well, at least it was out there and people tried it.
It's true.
And that's so much more important than it being perfect. And
Yeah.
through the whole chili pepper experience, it was like, let's just go try it. Let's iterate and let's push little things out there for people to continue to use. And like if people respond well to it, then it works out well.
Yeah.
I think that's still so cool now to just looking and seeing how many people are still using it today.
That's so cool. I love that, man. Back to Reflex.
Right.
So what you mentioned markets before. What markets are you guys currently in right now?
Totally. So proud to say that we've recently just launched our 5th market,
Okay.
which is a little bit of a stretch in Houston. And so
cool.
a couple weeks ago, we launched Houston, Texas. We're really proud about. So we've started Reflex piloting, in Austin, and we knew that we wanted to expand within the first year to the rest of Texas, and we're nearly there. And so when I say 5, it's really Dallas, Houston, and Austin, but we also have Fort Worth and San Marcos active as well.
Cool.
And so if you consider those, active markets, and we're in
So
5 to now,
cool,
which
man.
is really exciting.
Dude, I love that. Just take over Texas, man. Very cool.
Which, just to share here on the podcast, we're expanding incredibly quickly, and with a lot of the national brands that we're working with, we're being asked repeatedly, how fast can you get to fill in the blank?
Yeah.
And so we're looking at, 2023 being a big year for us as we start to expand past Texas and,
Love it, man.
start bringing what we're doing, the best way to work in retail, to other areas.
So cool, dude. And then same question, different terminology. What about other markets? As in, like, not necessarily retail, but like maybe you're working like for, I don't know. What can I think? I can never think of anything off the top of my head. Any other market?
Totally. Yeah. Great
Driving.
question.
I don't know. Like, what can I think of?
Yeah. When we started, it was like, why doesn't the gig economy exist everywhere?
Exactly. Yeah.
We saw a trend where, we're moving into different skill sets, and there's companies that are capitalizing on that idea. Mike and I made a really conscious decision early on that we're going to focus on retail and retail only. Mm-hmm. Right now, it makes most sense for us to serve the frontline workforce and the frontline retail as much as we can. And the more we can isolate ourselves around brands that have similar kinds of products, similar kinds of store operations, similar kinds of ideas, the better we're going to be able to solve them. And so for the near future, we're focused 100% on that customer profile and that customer profile only. And so we won't shy away from opportunities if they pop themselves up. But I mean, so much about entrepreneurship is just like letting yourself completely dive into a small niche and saying nay to everything else.
Yeah. Well, I think, unfortunately for me, or a lot of founders, entrepreneurship is about the quite opposite.
Right.
Saying yes
Doing
to
everything.
literally everything. And then learning
Absolutely.
to get to that point.
Right.
But so I'll rephrase my question because I clearly, not rephrase it, but I'll just edit it because I clearly couldn't think of a single thing that you can do besides retail. So like, I guess kind of similar industries, like what if a Starbucks approached you guys? They're like, hey, like we would love to use Reflex. Like, are you going to be like, no, it's not retail? Or like, could you kind of see that, being very similar to retail?
I think as business owners, you have to make a decision based on the opportunities that you have in front of you, as well as the resources and the services that you can provide to those opportunities.
Very, very political answer.
Thanks. I think if Starbucks called us up and they were really interested and it made sense for us, we wouldn't say no right away. We definitely would consider it.
Of course, yeah. You're like, oh, we're gonna talk about this.
That said, I mean, right now we're focused on the customer profile around specialty apparel retail, where we can have both front and back of house workers serving those needs, omnichannel, front of house, you name it. Cool. And we know that we can do that really well.
Very cool. Yeah, I can see like restaurants eventually possibly being a thing you guys can do. Like, so cool, man. Actually, that'd be really hard to show up and be a server. No, but you can be a busser though. You can be a busser. If you don't mind sharing, how much have you guys raised in total so far?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So when we came out of the gate, we raised just shy of $1.5 million from some folks here in town, as well as some VCs across the nation. Cool. And then more recently, we closed our seed round, which was just under $4.5 million.
Nice,
so just under $6 million.
Got some cash in the bank. Dude.
We do, yeah.
There you go.
What we're doing is, we want to drive being the first company focused on this frontline employee in the retail industry.
Very cool.
And so the decision to raise capital was about, how can we capitalize on that opportunity, but then also how can we spread what we're doing?
Yeah.
This mission of building a better way to work in retail it's something that we repeat often, and it's something that we do have on the wall, but we live it in our hearts, man. We fundamentally believe that frontline workers have been marginalized and taken advantage of for far too long, and so power back to the worker. And the faster that we can serve all of America or beyond.
Very cool.
With this concept, the better we can, and that's why we decided to raise cash.
Very cool. And kind of related to payments, or to cash and everything. Are you guys also a payment portal too? Or are you just like, here, go work at Target, and then like Target pays the employee? Or are you guys like, does Target pay you and then you distribute to the employee?
Great question. So we facilitate all payments.
Very cool.
I think one of the hardest things about, handling the employees that you have is making sure that payroll gets ran and running all the paperwork that's associated with it. We take all that away from the retailer, so they don't have to worry about that. The big advantage on the worker side, Corey, is like, our workers get paid the very next day.
Cool.
And so, if you're saving up some funds to go buy your daughter a new birthday present, you can work Reflex that weekend, and it's in your bank account by Monday morning.
I love that.
So it's a great way to make extra cash.
Dude, I used to wait tables for a long time, especially while I was building WeStrive. Like, I found that like that instant cash makes you so much more excited to work, because it's like, it can be hard to work sometimes when you're clocking in on a Monday and you're like, I'm not going to get paid for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's really demotivating.
It's exhausting. So if I'm like, I can get paid tomorrow, it makes me want to be like, oh, actually, I'll do another hour.
Right.
Save money tomorrow. I love that, man. So how do you guys get more stores to work with you, or is it like a pretty easy sell at this point? Like, where are you guys at?
So I think one of the things that's interesting is we're a brand new concept in this world of retail. We talked a little bit about this idea that every retailer has their own idea of who their brand is, and that's incredibly special to them.
Yeah.
So introducing Reflex into the equation is a little interesting because it's something completely fresh. And so a lot of our sales iteration process has been going through tapping into, okay, how can we articulate the value that's there? Getting started on Reflex is incredibly easy. Once we have commitment from the right folks in different corporations, it's just a couple flips on our side, and we're rocking and rolling, ready to go.
Very cool.
So, but the sales process obviously looks really interesting, and so a lot of what we've been doing to date is partnering with a lot of our advisors that we have. So shout out to those of you out there, and getting introductions into the right brands and meeting the right people from that. We couldn't do it without you guys. At the same time, we have the advantage of also being able to partner with boutiques. So as much as we're selling into national brands, we're able to walk into stores that have a help wanted sign and be hey, we have a really good idea for you on how to handle this. And we've been able to pick up boutiques in all the markets that we're serving on that idea.
Are you just driving by, you like at a stoplight, you see it's help wanted, it's kind of like screenshot? Like, do you do that?
We have a whole Slack channel where we share help wanted signs as a way of collecting ideas of who we could work with. Yeah,
I love that. I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna be like, hey, did you see this one on Fifth and whatever? Like, I'll send you over the help wanted. It's okay.
I think what's really cool about marketplaces too is the flywheel continues. So we had a gentleman that worked on our platform through the summer, and he's fantastic. He worked at almost every one of our brands, 5-star rating all across the board, just a delight. And he came to us and he's like, hey guys, I'm actually gonna go pursue my dream of becoming a store manager, which we're like, that's amazing. And so this gentleman actually left the Reflex platform, and he ended up working a few stores down from one of his most popular stores at the Domain as the store manager. And now today, like, we're in talks with actually working with them. And so I think this idea of implanting ourselves into this industry and kind of breaking down this new concept, like, once we can be able to show the value on both sides, it really helps both attract workers, but then also attract new brands to our platform.
Very cool. And what's the onboarding time? So like, I'm gonna use Target again. Actually, we'll use like a slightly smaller store. That might be a longer one, but
sure.
Let's say I'm like a 5-location chain.
Yeah.
And I come to you guys, like, the moment I like sign up for like an account or whatever, how soon can I get a person literally working in my store?
Sure. So one of the big things that we do is we make sure that any worker that goes into your location is going to be well prepared.
Yeah.
And so training and preparation, we work with each one of our customers individually to make sure that they have all that right kind of, we call it pre-flex information.
Dude, you guys just puns, dude.
We got a lot of them. Are you ready to flex?
Nice.
So with that, it really would just come down to, what kind of folks and what kind of roles do you need, and what things do you need to make them successful. That said, like our software is straightforward, and getting you set up is relatively easy.
Cool.
What we're actually working on behind the scenes right now is the ability for anyone to sign up and request a worker that day. And so with that, it'd be really nice to, like, any boutique can sign up with us and be ready to go.
Very cool. And then have you guys yourselves done shifts to, like, see the experience?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We definitely, ready to flex is one of our values at retail, or at Reflex, our company.
Yeah.
With all these words that start with RE, it gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, as standby, we definitely will play backup when we need it. And we have the advantage of a lot of us on the team having retail experience. And so,
cool. Did you used to work in retail? Or?
Yeah, I did not. Which
okay.
There's this whole story that we need to get in there
Gotcha,
when we were starting the company, doing some brand research. But, all of us have had the opportunity to work in store, and we've worked with some partners that are comfortable with that.
Cool.
And it's given us a huge advantage on the product side because every time I go fill a shift, I learn little details about our app that could have made me better prepared.
100%.
I notice a little thing that, like, from putting myself in the worker's shoes, like what that experience feels like.
Dude, it's so funny. Like, mine's applicable, like, when I'm working out.
Right.
It's so applicable. Well, not as much anymore, but when I was first building out the app, I'd be using the app and I'd be like, why the fuck doesn't it do this?
Right.
I'm like, wait, I did that. I made this.
That was my fault.
Yeah, I was like, wait, shit.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Wait, so how, probably way more in the beginning, but actually that's my question. How often in the beginning were you, like, just filling shift because no one was, like, working there yet or something like that?
Yeah, no, not as often as you think.
Yeah.
We were very quickly able to find quite a few people in Austin, our first market.
Just like Craigslist, or what were you
Yeah, well, we won't get into those secrets, but
okay.
No, but I think it was just the message of what we were doing, right? As a worker, like we talked a little bit about this, it's tough when you work in a part-time role. If you want to go get signed on at a brand like Everlane, for instance, and they need you to commit 15 to 20 hours, even as a part-time person, you might not be able to work that consistently week over week.
Yeah.
You also will be like, hey, I can't work Saturdays. I got my dog's birthday party that I like every Saturday. Every Saturday is his birthday. And they'll say accrual, that's fine. But then what will happen is a couple months later, Sally will unfortunately get sick and you'll be asked to work on Saturday. And you're like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
The message out of the gate that's really been resonating with our workers is, you can choose when you want to work. You can choose where you want to work. And because of that, it's pretty straightforward to get going as a worker on our platform. And I think that's really resonating with people.
So let's say, like, Nordstrom, do they just pay you, like, a lump sum ahead of time? And then, like, what's your business model? Are you taking a percentage of that, or how does that work?
Yeah. So with most marketplaces, the core business model is what they call the take rate, which is the difference between what does the customer pay versus what do we pay out for the people that provide the services. And that's our primary business model.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit early on about, hiring fees associated with that. We also talk about a platform use fee. And so retailers will also pay us a monthly license fee to be able to use and tap into our network.
Cool.
We've been experimenting with this business model. I think with, like, any company that's only been around for a year and change, like you're constantly iterating on that.
You're just making it up at this point. You're just like, I guess 100. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I think what's interesting is we have the flexibility to either work on a post-pay or a prepay model. And so some of our bigger brands, for instance, will actually prepay for a block of hours.
Cool.
And so we'll be able to retain that cash and be able to pay out from that pool. But other brands are working off of, we're actually fronting the capital for them. And so this becomes incredibly appealing for someone who's running, thousands of dollars every month in payroll transactions, is that, it's now something that they can pay after that in-person works rather than beforehand.
Very cool.
We like to keep it flexible, though. Depending on what the retailer's need is, like, we'll set up something that works.
Do you get a discount for buying hours in bulk?
You can, yeah. It just depends on, what makes sense.
Cool.
Like, marketplaces, again, are all about making sure that we have the right amount of demand and supply. And so sometimes, we'll make decisions in markets, especially early on when we're launching new ones, to say, hey, if we can guarantee that we'll have work for folks, it makes it easier for us to go find really incredible people in that market that are ready to work.
Very cool. And what's the team broken down into now? Because I mean, well, you guys raise a lot of money, so like you're probably hiring a lot. But like, what's the team look like today?
Totally. I think the first thing is that right now we're all in Austin, Texas. So we're really proud to be here and really be in this city. I think it's done really great things for us. We actually have a salesperson that's joining us in Dallas, but we're excited to expand our roots. But yeah, right now it's divided into a few different functions. We definitely still see ourselves as a conjoined unit working towards our objective. But we have folks that operate on the demand side, so new retail sales as well as existing relationships with retailers. We have people on what we call the operations side, which recruiting workers, onboarding workers, training workers, making sure that they get placed and filled into shifts correctly, and kind of running the day to day. And then we also have our product and engineering team, which is the team that I'm working on.
Very cool. And where do you see this go? I mean, we kind of already mentioned other markets, but like, where do you see this in the next couple of years? Like, what's kind of like end goal for you guys?
When retail is in a position where every part-time employee can choose their own schedule, and that's enabled by Reflex, we feel like we've achieved our mission.
Very cool.
And so, we see ourselves from Target all the way to Hermes on any range of the spectrum, being able to solve all different kinds of retailers. Gotcha. That starts in apparel right now, but as we expand out to other types of retail, that's the way that we can drive that mission.
So you see this being in a few years, like, excuse me. Oh, you're good. So you see this in a few years being like, if I go work at a store, it's more than likely it's gonna be like the toast of part-time hiring kind of a thing.
We'd love that.
Yeah.
I think one thing we haven't even talked on or touched on is that we see Reflex beyond just being a platform to work as a community. The retail as an industry is already quite the substantial community of individuals that have worked at different stores or different locations that have stayed connected. And so both on our worker side and our retailer side, we see Reflex as being the place that people want to go when you think about like working in the retail industry. Some of the people we've already been able to associate with, and he's on our advisory board, this gentleman named Ron Thurston. That's his whole mission, is understanding what it means to be a retail worker, to build a career out of retail, and to be proud that you're working in one of the oldest industries in all of the world.
Very cool. Wait, so if someone's watching this and they want to, and they're in Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, and they want to work on Reflex, what do they do?
Yeah, all you have to do right now is just head to our website, workreflex.com. That's the plug right there, and get signed up and get started.
So cool.
We put you through an onboarding process, which looks very superhuman style. You're actually going to talk to somebody from our team, and we're very intentional about making sure that we talk to everyone on our platform.
Very cool.
And then you'll go through the training necessary to get you into your first shift.
Okay, very cool.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it right now. We can hop into a store. Do you see that onboarding process changing at any point, or do you think it's gonna you guys have pretty much kind of solved that process at this point?
I mean, my wife jokes all the time. She's like, "Hey, Carson, what time are you gonna be done with work?" And I'll be looking down at my phone. It's like 6:30. I'm like, well, I'm not done with work.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can stop work to get dinner with you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think it's the same thing with the onboarding process, or any part of our application right now is we are striving to always make it better.
We strive.
There we go. And so I think with that, right, we're continuing to make refinements. I actually, before I came here, I was working on some improvements to what that looks like from an application perspective.
Nice.
But then also on our SOP or our operating procedure, we're constantly making improvements, make sure that we're doing the best we can.
Is it a mobile app or is it a website right now?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. So early on, we made a product decision that we weren't going to build mobile out of the gate. I think it was actually partly from watching you do it and watching a few other friends do it, and then at arcades, some of the challenges with it.
Everyone I talk to, I tell that it was like, I'm going to make an app. I'm like, make a website. If no one cares, don't make an app. It's the biggest waste of time to start with an app, dude. Oh.
We were really confident that we could build a great experience on web, especially on the mobile device. And so what we looked at was all right, well, that means that we don't get push notifications. This is along the same time that, I had this growing sentiment that no one opens their email anyway, and people probably ignore their push notifications.
Yeah.
And so instead of using push, we built our entire system to work off of text message and text message automations.
With Volt?
No, we're not using Volt.
Or what was it called? Respond Flow.
Not Respond Flow either. That's another company secret. Yeah. But with that, I think we get incredibly high engagement rates to all the text messages that we send out about things happening on the platform. And so when a new shift becomes available or new flex, we're sending it out to a pool of workers, and they're texting us back like, "Hey, this would work if it was an hour later," and that gives us direct line into then texting the retailer and making sure that making the adjustments on that.
So cool.
That said, though, I'm really proud to announce that we are working on the mobile application. Hey. And so we're focused on primarily for the worker. We see that over 95% of the people that are hitting our website and using the web app today on the worker side are using it from a phone.
Very cool.
And so it's time to make that investment.
I can see that being so cool to be sitting on the couch on a Thursday and I don't really have plans this weekend. I just pull out my Reflex app and I just take 2 shifts.
Yeah, 100%.
When I used to drive for Uber or DoorDash, I would love just dibsing a DoorDash shift.
There you go.
I just loved it. It's there's money. There's money right there,
As much as we talked about flexibility, I think so much of you being proud of what you do comes from the certainty that it's going to be around tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so retailers are not just booking 20 minutes out. Sometimes they're booking 2-3 months out. Mm-hmm. And so we have plenty of work to go around for the workers that are on our platform. And so with that, we're able to let people choose their own schedule. And so maybe you want to pick up a couple extra shifts because you're about to hightail out to Vegas and you need a couple extra dollars to spend. And so we provide that opportunity for folks to kind of get an additional way to make it cash.
Dude, so cool. What are you guys gonna be super busy in the next couple of weeks?
My co-founder was giving me beef because I actually was coming on tonight because we are definitely heads down mode now.
Yeah.
The holiday season is our Super Bowl.
Yeah, for sure.
Already we're starting to see more volume on the platform than we ever have.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready for that, and we found a few ways to do it. But yeah, absolutely. I probably won't answer my phone for the next few weeks, so you caught me at a good time.
This won't air till after busy season, so we'll be good to go.
Oh, excellent. Then this will definitely not sound right.
There we go.
If you're watching this now and we're past the holiday season, give me a high five next time you see it because we made it.
There we go. Well, awesome, man. Do you have anything you want to leave the audience with, or?
Well, first and foremost, quick shout out to you, man. I think what you're doing in the Austin community is really great. Getting creatives, investors, and people building things together is just such an incredible talent. So, quick thanks to you.
Appreciate it. You helped name the podcast too.
Sorry?
I put the podcast ideas in the group chat, and you upvoted Why We Strive.
100%, man.
There you go.
Yeah, we like to all be part of this journey, and so shout out to everyone out there that has helped us along the way. We couldn't do it without you. It takes a village to build anything. It takes a village to strive towards anything, right. And so we give it. On that note, though, I definitely want to plug Reflex and what we're doing. If you're interested, we're definitely looking for engineers and product people. If you're excited about building something that impacts one of the largest industries in the world, definitely reach out to me. I would love to talk. Otherwise, just root us on. We would love your support.
Good stuff, man. Pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, all right.
That's why we strive.
That's why we strive.
There we go, man. I wanted to thank you for watching this entire episode of Why We Strive. Be sure you head to whywestrive.com and subscribe so every Tuesday you can see incredible interviews with some of the best tech founders, investors, and creatives in the industry. Have an amazing day, and don't forget to keep striving.